Hi guys, welcome to The Delicate Flower. My name is Pam. I'm a social worker and I'm also a counsellor in training based here in the UK. I make lots of content around mental health, recovery, trauma, coping strategies, and offer lots of free resources and tools to aid you in your recovery journey. So if you're interested in things of this nature, then please press the subscribe button, like this video, and let's get started. So in today's video, I want to talk about conditions of worth. Girl, these conditions that has us in chokehold. We've got to loosen it up. I'm cutting by the way. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about conditions of worth. So for anybody who doesn't know what conditions of worth are basically conditions that govern us, our values, our belief system, our principles. They're basically conditions that are often placed on us by other people, occasionally placed on us by ourselves, particularly when we're growing up. That says that, in order for me to be loved, in order for me to feel worthy, in order for me to be, appreciated, or in order for my parents to feel proud, then I have to do this. I need to do this. If not, or in order to receive this, I must do that. So their conditions, it varies for different people depending on the family that you grew up in, the cultural system, the belief system. But these are conditions that often, even though they're often imposed on us when we're children, actually we live by them even in adult years. And most of us don't realize it, or they don't realize the impact that it's still having on us today. And as we talk about this video and as I go on, I'll probably share my own personal things a bit with you later on about some of these conditions that I discovered whilst I'm going through my counseling training. But yeah, there are these conditions that govern our belief system, our values. A common example could be things like men don't cry. These are terms that we often say to little boys, but actually they grow up and become men who actually don't cry. Why? Because society doesn't deem it appropriate. That's a condition that governs their belief system. For some people who perhaps grew up in a family where they were very much driven, it could be actually, unless you go to uni, go to university, get this degree, become an engineer, become a lawyer, become a doctor, then we're not going to be proud of you. So you've grown up thinking, actually, the only way to make my parents proud is for me to keep going into education, do my master's, do my PhD, do this. But yet perhaps this is not what you want. So these are conditions, and often at times they're not intentional. They're just belief systems, sometimes family traditions from their own stuff that they've grown up with, that they place on us as children. And as we grow up, we still live by them, and we still follow these conditions as a way of us feeling worthy, loved, proud, whatever the case may be. For some people who are people pleasers, it's likely that there was some form of condition that governed your worth growing up, and you've carried this through in your adult years. So let me just share an example. I'll share two examples with you, my own personal example. One is a condition that I placed on myself, and the other is one that it got placed on me simply because of the society that I grew up in at the time. So in terms of the first one that I placed on myself, that I didn't know about, I wasn't aware of this until later on as I was going through my counseling training, and things come up naturally as they do. I was like, girl, this is so sad. Like, why? Like, I didn't even realize this was something that was still affecting me today. So anyway, the condition was to be silent and not be seen. And I placed this condition on myself at the age of 11 years old when I moved from Africa to come here in the UK. When I grew up in Africa, I was a very bubbly child, very active child. I wasn't loud. I still conformed and lived by the standards in the society, but I was quite a happy child, lovely childhood, all the rest of it. But when I came to the UK, obviously, suddenly, of course, there's a culture shock. You've got students talking at the teachers and nobody is saying anything. There isn't any discipline as I've known it back home and all the rest of it. And, being in a very new environment where everything is different, I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to not be seen. I didn't try to fit in. I certainly didn't try to stand out. I just tried to blend in and be in the background as much as possible. Why? Because I understood that I looked different to everybody. I was this fresh African child. I dressed appropriately. I did my school tie up to here. My skirts were long. I wore my white socks. Michael Jackson. Sorry guys, this isn't even funny, but I did things proper. I went to a school that it wasn't, let's say Ofsted rating was just a bit mad. I went to this school and, everybody was just doing something different. My accent sounded different. I conformed to the rules. I became aware of how different I was to everybody. So I certainly didn't want to stand out. I didn't even want to blend in. I just wanted to be in the background. I didn't want to be seen. Slowly, I began to lose my voice. If I need something in the class, I didn't put my hands up. So I put this condition on myself to be quiet and not to be seen. Why? Because this is how I was able to cope with that circumstance at the time, right? This is what made me feel comfortable. So the condition that I put myself for me at the time was, Pam, in order for you to feel comfortable and to cope with this scenario, right, you have to not be seen or heard. You have to blend in. And as I've grown up, this is still something that I lived by for a long time that I wasn't even aware of. Certain things that I wouldn't volunteer myself for. There's certain times, perhaps sometimes, particularly in groups, that I've got very interesting opinions, but I didn't want to share it. There are certain things that I would avoid, or even things like social media and all that. Doing YouTube, actually, this is part of me trying to break this condition, actually, and putting myself out there. So it followed me through my adult life and I wasn't even aware of it, right? Up until I started doing my counseling training, and obviously, like I said, naturally things come up and I became aware, oh my gosh, this is a condition that I placed on myself. So now as an adult, I'm actively challenging certain things, and later on, again, I'm going to be talking about different things that you can do to challenge these conditions and hopefully break free from them, particularly if they are not good conditions that has been placed on you. So yeah, as an adult, I'm trying to actively do things because I recognize that, Pam, you're no longer the 11-year-old girl who came here who was thinking, oh my gosh, this is such a huge cult. You're a different person. You are an adult. You've got your own life. You've got your own opinion. It's okay to be seen. You've got things to share. You've got knowledge. You've got expertise that can help different people. So it's about acknowledging that. And when I have those conditions, or when I catch myself in those moments where I realize, ping, 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 the 11-year-old Pam is trying to protect herself, is about saying, girl, I hear you. I acknowledge you. You're safe. But we're no longer there anymore. I've even gone a bit too ahead of myself. But yeah, that's one of the conditions that, like I said, an example of a condition that I placed on myself. The other condition that was placed on me was, again, really, it was similar to the first one, but not to be heard, right? And not to share my opinions, not to be too loud in talking, not to have an opinion, essentially, in a nutshell. And again, this stems from growing up in an environment, in a cultural space whereby children had to conform. If you didn't conform, you get a beating. If you didn't conform, you get a caning. In school, when you don't know the answer to something, you get a caning. You don't talk back to adults. You don't share your opinion. In fact, when there's adults in the room, where are you? I can't see that child. I can't see you, because children should not be seen, right? So again, these were things that society believed in. It was preached in the home that I grew up in. So as a child growing up, you learn not to voice your opinion. And this is so sad, because I believe this is actually quite a common condition, particularly within people from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. There's often this idea that, there's this hierarchy between parents or authority versus child. You don't share your opinion, you don't challenge, even if the adult is wrong. Don't say nothing. Is a cultural thing. So a lot of people from my background, perhaps in Africa or Asia or China, wherever, they have these same conditions. And even as adults, they're afraid to share their opinion. They're afraid to challenge certain things when they're wrong. Sometimes it can seem justice is taking place, but they can't challenge it. They can't challenge maybe their managers. They can't challenge, people who are older than them, even if they feel a strong burning desire to. Why? Because of this condition that governs their life, that has been placed on them whilst growing up. So I hope you guys are getting what I mean as I go along and I talk about these conditions. So yeah, just to summarize again, this is conditions of worth, are essentially rules that govern our values, our belief system, and how we live our lives. They're often things that are placed on us by other people, particularly in our younger years when we're growing up. But as I shared in my own example, you can place these conditions on yourself as well. So now that I've talked about it, I hope it's giving you a bit of a summary and a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about and what conditions of worth are. Moving into the next stage of how to deal with it or how to manage these conditions of worth, the first thing is to know what they are. And how do you know what they are? You know this through reflection. I love, guys, I cannot tell you. I'm always thinking. Every time my husband says, "What are you doing?" I'm thinking, "Why are you so quiet?" I'm just thinking, why? Because I like to think, right? I like to reflect. I like to talk, process things, go through things in my mind. I like to have conversations with myself. I like to have conversations with God. I'm constantly reflecting. So that is a great thing to start with. I would say start reflecting and thinking about your childhood. Again, what are some of these conditions? And it may be difficult at first because it's so embedded in your life that it may not even stand out as, a condition of worth. But actually, one of the ways to go around it is to start thinking about some of the values that you live by now as an adult that you think is affecting you. Perhaps you find yourself, like me, not being able to voice your opinion or not wanting to be seen, things like that. Look into your life now as an adult. What are some of these things that is affecting that you're thinking, actually, I don't even know why is this still a thing? Why do I struggle with this so much? I don't want to be like this, or I don't want to live this way, but I don't know how to. It's often a condition of worth. So once you reflect and you become aware of exactly what these conditions are, the next stage is to be conscious and to be intentional in addressing it. So let's assume you reflected and you figured out 1, 2, maybe 3 conditions of worth, and you want to change, you want to live your life differently. As you move through life, the moment you become aware that, oh my gosh, this condition is at play, perhaps you're in work and somebody said something that actually crosses a boundary for you. Instead of being quiet, perhaps you have this urge to defend yourself. The alarm is going on, bing, bing, bing. This is a condition. Acknowledge it, protect that little child, because like I said, these are things that often we had to do or we had to live by in order to feel loved or proud, for our parents to feel proud of us. So acknowledge that little child or that little girl and acknowledge that you're no longer in that space, and then do what it is that you're hoping to do or the new conditions that you want to live by. So reflect, be very aware and conscious of it, and actually act out. And the third thing is to practice, 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 guys. These things are not going to feel natural to begin with, but as you do it, the more you become conscious, the more you challenge, the more you speak up, the more you want to be seen, the more you actively work on breaking these conditions, the better you are going to be at it, really, in terms of challenging it and creating the life that you want to live. So I know this has probably been quite a long video of me just chattering on and stuff, but I do hope you enjoyed it, guys. Please subscribe, press the like button, and comment below. What are your conditions of worth? Maybe as I've been talking, you've been triggered by something, or I've brought up a memory about something, or maybe your conditions of worth were the same as mine growing up. Share that with me in the description comments. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.